Dear students, we are going to do a very different and interesting topic today, that is the impact of environment on behavior. So, as you know, psychology is a highly developing field and there are so many applied aspects to psychology because human beings, wherever there is a human being, their psychology will be evidently present, because psychology is to do with the behavior of the individual. So, wherever he is behaving, in all those situations and aspects, psychology is slowly developing. Although initially psychology began with psychophysical experiments, today psychology has developed to such an extent that yes, it is doing justice to its definition, trying to encompass and explain all aspects of behavior. So, in this module, we are going to see what environmental psychologists basically do. We are also going to see the development of the field of environmental psychology, and finally, we are going to see how environment is going to have an impact on our behavior. Environmental psychologists, or the subject environmental psychology, tries to explore the relationships between our behavior and the environment around us. It is an interdisciplinary discipline which involves many other closely related disciplines such as architecture, civil engineering, then eco-psychology, even other areas such as social ecology and many other closely related subjects. So, environmental psychology is truly interdisciplinary in nature, and the methodology that environmental psychologists adopt is also eclectic in nature, because there are so many varieties of disciplines that are involved in environmental psychology, and the research methodology is more eclectic in approach. Apart from that, the environmental psychologists try to evolve theories with a view of guiding the research. Now, let us see how environmental psychologists try to define their field. Please have a look at slide 6. Altman and his associate has described or defined environmental psychology as the study of human behavior and well-being in relation to the socio-physical environment. Russell and Snodgrass has defined that the environmental psychology is the branch of psychology concerned with providing a systematic account of the relationship between a person and his or her environment. Behavior has always been studied by psychologists from various perspectives, and the various influential factors for behavior have always been identified by the psychologists. And today, 3 major influences on behavior have been identified, and you can have a look at slide where you can see that psychologists have listed 3 major influential factors. One is biology, and the other one is social factors, and the third one is environmental factors. We all of us know that biology certainly has an impact on behavior, because genetics has a role to play, and after all the recent findings about the impact of neurology or the nervous system, the functioning of various systems in the body, especially the brain and related structures, how they are going to influence behavior, the level of neurotransmitters in the body, all these influences are well documented today. Apart from that, the social factors, they have also been highly researched upon, how if the family system influences the person's behavior, and how the school, the media, the cultural factors, all these have an impact. Today, the impact of environment is equally being given an emphasis, so much so that psychologists have recognized the impact of environment as one of the most influential factors. Because no matter where we are or how we are, certainly the place in which we are presently placed is going to have a lot of impact on us. And some of the findings of environmental psychologists have shown that the place where we are situated or the environment around us is going to alter our behavior to a great extent. So, it means just because we are in a different environment, we are going to behave differently than when we are in another environment. This you can especially see if you are placed in a drastically different environment than you are usually are in. Say for example, we are so much used to a calm and peaceful life, but suddenly if there is, say, in war situation with lot of bombers and lot of bombs exploding around us, we get to listen to all those sounds and so many sirens that go around in the neighborhood, so much of shouts. If you imagine a war situation, how your neighborhood will be and how that is going to affect your environment or your behavior, and you can contrast it with your normal behavior in your normal neighborhood. So, certainly environment has an impact on our behavior. Let us first try to understand the basic principles by which the environmental psychologists are guided. So, please have a look at slide which lists 5 principles that are pointed out by environmental psychologists. Firstly, they clearly state that environmental psychology is interdisciplinary, and we have seen how many disciplines are involved in environmental psychology. So, certainly it is interdisciplinary in nature. The second principle that they list is that environmental psychologists try to improve physical environment. So, they are going to directly work on the physical environment, they are going to make changes in the physical environment so that the behavior gets improved. And the third principle that they list is that this environmental psychological research is conducted in the everyday settings. So, they are not going to do their research in some controlled or under controlled laboratory conditions, but they are going to bring their research onto the field, and all the research is in the social, normal or everyday settings. The fourth principle is they consider person and the setting as a holistic entity. So, environmental psychologists do not just focus on the person as many other psychologists do, but they also consider or equally the context in which the person is placed. So, they try to study interrelationship between the person and the entity. And finally, environmental psychologists recognize that people actively cope with and shape settings rather than just absorb them. So, what they mean by this principle is that environmental psychologists believe that people try to actively make changes with respect to their behavior in response to the settings rather than just become passively responding to the environment. So, these are the 5 major principles of environmental psychology. Let us see some important contributions to the development of the field of environmental psychology. To begin with, Kurt Lewin's field theory has found to be influential in the development of environmental psychology. After the impact of that theory, there are psychologists who started writing books on different aspects of environmental psychology. In fact, during the 1940s and 50s, still the word environmental psychologist has not come out, but they have written books on, for example, ecological psychology and also other related fields of psychology, which are closely explain about environmental impacts. And in about 1940s, around 1950, what happened is a major event has occurred. That is when the government has wanted to rearrange or build a mental hospital that is conducive for the mentally ill patients. So, it is then that the architects who are given this job of building a mental hospital that is conducive for the health and well-being of the mentally ill patients, they have got an idea that if they involve psychologists, then they will get better ideas. It is then that they had asked some or collaborated with some psychologists, because it is psychologists who try to understand behavior and influences on behavior. So, together this team of architects and civil engineers and psychologists have worked together to the development of what is called as architectural psychology. So, then they had built this hospital and many other programs have followed suit, where they tried to take the help of psychologists in trying to create designs and plan and build structures. Although initially it began like that, over the years lot of changes have happened, and this field has expanded beyond the architectural situations or structures, and it went to even other infrastructural facilities and outdoor facilities like parks, landscapes. So, that is when the field of environmental psychology has emerged. And these environmental psychologists, they make an attempt to create, to manage and protect the several infrastructures or environmental structures with an objective of enhancing people's behavior. So, to say in simpler terms, what they are trying to achieve is to build a structure or a building or a park, for example, that will give maximum output of positive behaviors from the people or children who are using that. And involved in that is the kind of safety measures and also the pleasantness. If a person is in a good mood, then naturally the behavior is good. That is what psychologists have come to know from the research findings. So, it is an established fact today that being in good mood is going to give good behavioral output. So, psychologists brought all their knowledge of the person, including their behavior in social context, and tried to implement or apply it here, and that is when the field of environmental psychology began to develop and grow. So, they are going to work on such situations like which color gives best behavior under which circumstances, and which colors are appealing to humans, which colors are appealing to the genders. Men might like a different color compared with women, and children might like different color compared with adults, and adolescents might have their own color preferences. Not only that, they also tried to work on many other aspects, such as they started conducting rigorous experiments trying to identify what are the characteristic features that are liked based on the environmental factors that are liked and approved by the general population. So, for this they conducted field studies where for example, they have tracked all the visitors to a park, and they observed like in which areas of the park they are spending more time and which areas of the park they are in an observable positive mood, and also where meaningful exchanges are happening. So, they try to study the characters of that particular situation and then try to assess the impact on behavior. And finally, when consensus has been arrived, they start building such structures that are found to have the best impact on human behavior and well-being. Now, in this model, let us see how environment is going to have an effect on behavior. To begin with, Baker has done lot of studies regarding how the environment is going to influence behavior. In his ecological theory, he has clearly observed and developed a theory which states that social settings influence behavior. The social context in which a person is placed, like the family, the school in which the person is studying, the neighborhood in which the person is placed, the city or town in which the person is dwelling, the state and the country and also the continent, and so on and so forth. All these are going to have an impact. The family obviously is going to have an impact on the person's behavior, or the house in which the person is living, the space that is there available to the person to move, the interiors, how well furnished the house is, also is going to have an impact on the behavior of the person. And apart from that, even school structures and buildings have supposed to be influencing the behavior of children. So, the kind of school classroom, inside the school classroom, the arrangement of the tables or desks, that is also going to have an impact. And today we know that schools, there is highly recommended to have colorful classrooms, and so that is why there are so many posters that are hung all around the classroom, and also a lot of positive material is there before the children for them to see and respond in a positive manner. So, the classroom has to be planned in such a manner that it has minimum risk to the students. So, there should be enough space in which the children can move about in an easy and carefree manner. Apart from that, the kind of material that the children get exposed to in the classroom, the colors on the boards, the colors that are placed in the charts, and also the positive material that is portrayed in the charts is going to have an impact. If suppose there are so many war related or fighting related scenes that are depicted in the charts, on the charts of the classrooms, that has found to be having an adverse effect on the behavior of the children, because we know that many children or all children learn a lot by observation. So, by observing and continuously looking at these noxious stimuli, they are going to also respond in a maladjustive and disruptive manner. Apart from that, the playgrounds that are available to the children, the scenery or the landscape of the school or college, that is also going to have an impact. So, apart from that, the office landscape, and coming to the office indoors, how the chambers are placed. This person has an individual room of his or her own, or is a person placed along with others, and if they are placed along with others, do they have their own privacy places? So, whether they have some privacy places or everything is left open in the office situation also is going to have an impact on the behavior. Because a person spends a lot of time in the office, almost all the day hours in the office, so many attachment patterns develop with the office surroundings and situation. So, the understanding about territory and space is a major factor when psychologists or environmental psychologists try to design office buildings or structures, because every person has a territory which is not clearly or publicly marked, but innately or unconsciously every person marks his or her own territory, in which the person will feel, yes, this is my space, and if anyone else intrudes into that space, they might react positively or negatively. So, any strangers coming into their private cubicle at work may change or have an effect on their mood, and this person might overreact or show an emotional outburst, because some stranger or someone whom the person doesn't consider as a friendly colleague has stepped into his private space. There will be lot of emotional response, and then from that point onwards the person will not be able to communicate or concentrate on his work properly. So, the work output is going to have an effect and it is going to suffer. So, many other aspects, such aspects like understanding space and territory, and also the level of noise that is there in the work condition or in the learning situation, like either in classrooms or in colleges, is also an important factor that environmental psychologists try to study and minimize. It has been found out that loud noise is going to result in strain easily, and it is going to disturb concentration levels, and so environmental psychologists plan the structures in such a way that the noise production will be minimized, and also there will be lot of absorption of the noise by other infrastructures that are placed by them. Environmental psychologists not only are working in the field of having a perfect housing condition and a nice place to learn, but they are also working in such situations like working with the mentally ill, trying to create or construct the right mental hospitals for them. In fact, that is how the environmental psychologist's work has begun, as you have just heard. And other areas is even they are trying to build the right kind of prisons so that there is less prison violence. Now, in history, if we see, there are many episodes of prison violence where prisoners try to kill each other and commit lot of crimes even when they are incarcerated. So, building the right kind of prison structures or prison cubicles or cells, the kind of spatial and territory arrangements that need to be made in the prison situation is also being explored. Other aspects of the environment that are found to influence behavior is, for example, density of population. Some of the findings include like the effects of crowding on human concentration levels, on their emotional states, and also on the level of fatigue. It has been found out that in a crowded space, where if especially if the person has to be present in that crowded scene for a relatively long period of time, it is certainly going to lead to more aggressive tendencies. So, that is why in crowds we usually see that there are lot of fights that happen. compared with in places where there is less crowd, because the crowd sort of stimulates the person's senses, and the person becomes sort of in a hyper state, and any small thing because the person also feels tired because of over sort of an impulses on the person's system, which results in an emotionally sensitive state, and people in crowds are found to be more aggressive in nature and also getting impatient very easily, and compared with when they are in a normal state, they found that they are less friendly and more selfish, and many other aspects of behavior have been found to be influenced because of crowding. So, other aspects like the effect of pollution on behavior has also been studied by environmental psychologists, and they have found out that pollution is going to affect the mental levels of the person in many ways, apart from affecting the health conditions. Because of high levels of pollution today, there are more and more people who are suffering from ill health. So, if they are not physically healthy, then it means that they are having less energy, less patience, and also their resources are being overutilized. Because of these conditions, people who are frequently suffering from illnesses cannot lead a meaningful life. They get easily dejected, and also there are many cases when they become depressed, because ill health has many causes, like they will be losing quality time with the family, they will be losing work hours, they might be sometimes be fired from their jobs because they are continuously showing absenteeism, and also financially also there is going to be a crunch. And so in all ways the effects of pollution on human health, well-being and behavior are really very adverse. So, environment has a major effect on our behavior, and the focus of environmental psychologists with respect to behavior is to identify the feelings that are involved or changes in the feelings of the person that is involved, and also regarding the changes in their behavior patterns and the effect that it is going to have on the health and also productivity. So, feelings, then behaviors, and health issues and productivity are the ones that are majorly concentrated or focused by environmental psychologists, in spite of what behavior they are studying. So, in any kind of environmental study that they undertake, they focus on these 4 areas, and then they develop the various findings are also explained from these 4 standpoints. So, by this it is clear that the scope of environmental psychology is all inclusive and has a long ranging and wide impact on behavior of the individual.